I jokingly on some of the insights, I'll bring it up again here. I've referred to him as like I think he thinks of himself, his own perception as like he's Paul Le Chevalier, the knight. Like he thinks of himself as like, if you're a real man, you should just go to the top lane. You should pick a real top lane champion, not some like just tank bullshit, you know. And then you should just battle one-on-one, and you shouldn't just be constantly waiting for jungle pressure and constantly 2v running. You should just play that way, because if this happens, then it plays right into sOAZ's wheelhouse. He's good at playing just straight 1v1. He has a good sense for trading. I remember Zoro Zero telling me he thought sOAZ was one of the best at understanding like the damage and that he'll take and receive if he goes in for particular trades. A very good sense of this. He has an impossibly large champion pool, probably the largest champion pool of any top laner, maybe even any player in League of Legends history. Just ludicrous, because one of his key qualities, it's always been there throughout his whole career, is that sOAZ has a really, really good intuitive sense for how to use champions in matchups that either they've never played before, or he's never played before, or are very rarely used. Like counter picks that aren't even real counter picks, like they aren't traditional counter picks, they're just weird ones that can work because the other guy doesn't quite understand how this matchup's going to play. He hasn't spammed it, he hasn't gotten comfortable and got the routine of what's going to happen at level 1, then level 4, then level 16, and then what if I get this item first, and people don't know because they haven't played these before. In that world, in that chaos, sOAZ thrives. People think this is an exaggeration, that he just plays all these wacky picks secretly and then brings them out. No, he really does have some picks where he's like played them once in solo queue and then he brings it out in a pro game and wins with it, or causes real problems with it. That's part of the reason why he's held in such high regard by the other top laners in Europe, and why if you talk to the Zoro Zeros or the Wickeds or the Darians, I don't actually know about Darian's crazy enough, who the fuck knows, that nearly all of them will all tell you like, no, sOAZ is legit, he's really good. Like there's almost no point in time they'll say like, oh, he's crap now and he's never going to return. He always does return, he always finds a way back. So one of the weird things about sOAZ is, I've just mentioned, he has this insanely wide champion pool. He can counter pick all the time, he can do anything he wants, yet there's certain periods in time when he'll just develop, for seemingly no reason, a strange dislike for a champion. And this champion is usually, nearly always, a meta champion that a lot of people are using and being successful with in his region even. And he'll just decide one day, no, I don't want to play that. And he won't always just say like, I don't want to play it. He'll always be like, I don't think it's good. Like, I think I can beat it with these counter picks. And nearly always, it reminds me of Doublelift a bit in season 3, where what they'll do is, it's obvious to anyone that the champion is good because it's being effective. Now, it's true, there are counters to it and you don't have to play it. But what they would both do, this is where they share a quality that reminds me, is that it's not just that they'll go, oh, well, I don't like that champion, therefore I'm not going to play it, so I'll play the obvious counters to it and I'll just beat it with the counters, so it's a fair matchup. Instead, what they'll both do is almost try and, out of spite, it feels like, try and show the world that champion isn't as good as people say. And so instead of just picking even a counter to that, they'll pick something that might even be countered by that, or is just a weird pick and is a skill matchup, and they'll try and beat it using their incredible skill and their unique qualities. And the worst part is, they're so good that sometimes they would do it and then they'd sort of be like, see, I told you that wasn't actually that good. And you're like, well, no, you had a losing matchup, you just outskilled the guy. Like, you understood the matchup better and you had a better game plan and you executed what you wanted to do, but like, you didn't prove anything there. And so the reason why I bring this up is because there've been certain times where that stubbornness has cost sOAZ. Like, the two I'm thinking of is, there were times when he was probably the best Shen in Europe and he just would refuse to play it. He would play it sometimes, play at the end of season 2 especially, but there was just times when he just like, I don't want to play that, which is like, okay. And especially as you think about it, Shen, it sort of comes with the teleport, doesn't it? So you'd think it'd be tailored for sOAZ to be a god on that champion. Instead, sometimes he shied away. Renekton is obviously the other one. I mean, I don't know what it is that got in sOAZ's head that made him not want to play Renekton, because again, to me, Renekton is a champion that sOAZ should be amazing on.
Because so many people do that, they always try to like force the meme that someone's like an anime when they're not in any way. Like 99% of League of Legends storylines would be the shittest anime ever made. But this is one of the rare instances where actually it would be a fantastic anime. If you just watch the way sOAZ played in this series, because he's the character in an anime that has to get like his ass kicked and then he like just turns something on inside him, and he goes fucking ham. And it's like he has to get his ass kicked. He has to have all the criticism. Everyone has to be laughing at him. And then, just as he did in week 2 of the groups here, just as he did as this series went on, he just like powers up to an incredible level. You know, it's like he's that boss that you have to beat down to 30% health, and that's when he unlocks the extra 200 health and, you know, goes to the next level. Because after the first 2 games, he just went fucking ham. He was like the Western Faker in that equivalent, you know. He just didn't want to lose this series, apparently. Because the weird thing about him is, I actually know this from talking to him over the years a lot, is he got this weird rep, right, that he's like a bad teammate. Because people think, you know, he lacks motivation, or people think, for example, that, you know, he would play weird picks and he would do a lot of weird stuff. But what they don't know is, I actually think that part of the reason why he has some bad games is because he's actually too good a teammate. Like, whenever he plays shit champions that he doesn't want to play and he doesn't think can win the game, but his coaches and his team tell him, do this because, you know, this is what successful teams in the meta are doing, and, you know, let Reckless carry and let Caps do whatever he want mid lane. He's actually being a good teammate, but that's what he thinks a good teammate is. He thinks, right, so to be a good teammate, I have to do that. But you notice every time he sort of just breaks and just goes like, give me everything I want. That's actually when Fnatic's fucking fantastic. They actually look really good when he does that.
Yeah, when he plays more selfish, it looks better for them, because the way he gets out of those situations is almost comical, right? It's like, oh, he shouldn't have been able to do that, but it gets them so much. And he does it with such frequency that I don't know if it's chance anymore.
I always tell this anecdote that because you were old school in like 2013 when I was first doing my interviews, because you were on from the beginning of League of Legends, that you actually told me in 2013 in an interview, like, yeah, I don't even fucking really care about League of Legends, the game anymore. I just play for competition. And mate, that was like 7 years ago now. So is that really like the way your career's been? Like, has most of your career in League just been about trying to be like the best pro as opposed to loving the game?
No, I think there's time to time you do enjoy it, depending of like your teammates, depending of competition, tournaments. A lot of things make it that you actually enjoy it, but in the long term, it's not like you don't like grinding as much. But I think a lot of players have just good work ethic, but I don't know if they truly love the game the same as before. I don't think it's possible. I think you just find joy in other or in other small things rather than just the game itself, right?
As I alluded to earlier, like, if you'd have looked at that first interview we did way back, you would never think you'd be playing all these years later, like still even in Fnatic at the same time all those years. Like, what do you think of your career? Like, you don't seem like someone to me in the early days who was ever worrying about, like, you know, the idea of it, like having legacy and, you know, how many, you're just playing because you were good and you were one of the best players, right? So is it different now when you look back and think how many years, all the times you were in finals, the worlds, so much to look back on?
I mean, I feel like I wasn't looking at the future too much. I was always going on a day by day, but I was also, maybe I was like so confident in myself that it didn't get me worried, if it makes sense. I knew that I was gonna be able to make it work for myself regardless. So I didn't really put that much pressure on myself. So yeah, I think it was great overall, aside from the last 2 years, obviously, but hopefully, you know, I can change that for myself, whether it's coaching or whether it's going back to pro play at some point.
We'll start with the order you went in. We'll go with sOAZ. sOAZ is a player where, especially in the early days, obviously top lane at the time, could be all these carry champions and AP champions. He was a guy who was famous, even in an era when a lot of people played a lot of different stuff in top lane, for having a champion ocean, and especially being a master of like first timing or playing like an unusual matchup no one else plays. He's a guy who, in later times, was a monster at being a sacrificial player on the bruisers and the tanks. He's a guy who got a very, very strong understanding of macro knowledge throughout most of League of Legends. Basically, from the time he joined Fnatic onwards, he's had a fantastic mind, probably the best ever from the top lane, for understanding how to play the map and how to play with your win conditions. So I would say, if we're going to kind of cover the gamut here, if you want to go and see the crazy stuff where he's played anything and everything, go to Season 3 and Season 4, and you'll find series where sOAZ just plays 5 different champions and plays stuff that isn't even played that often, or just plays Lulu a bunch of games where you're like, what the hell? And it's just to get other people ahead and just to make Expect here be like a monster, or Reckless be a monster in the team fight. By the way, just as a quick aside, since you were referencing Nuke Talk, I know everyone, like, this is another thing. It's just EU players in general amazing. Let's face it, it's not to do with, like, having to be a trash talker. If you're a top EU player, because Reddit is mainly Americans, they're just waiting for you to fall off so they can say you're garbage. Like, mate, Reddit's opinion on players like sOAZ is so trash. Like, they were hating on this guy when he was the best. Like, it's unreal. As mad as it sounds, even though they were really good, they'd sort of mastered, like, how you peak for the playoffs, like, exactly how much you can, like, play to still be good without like no lifing it. And as you say, if there's ever a party, if there's ever a fucking a Friday where they wanted to, they would find a way to do it, but it wouldn't affect the results, is what I always was amazed by. So give me some sense in this regard, because these guys, like, think about the contrast. The TSM example we gave before, it is like, I always say, like, Reggie would just bust in the room and be like, what's going on here? I'm like, we're losing us. But like, this seems like a totally different contrast, because these guys, they were sort of slackers in a weird way, even though they were amazing at the game, right?
Yeah, I mean, the best way I'll put it is, like, me and Mithy kind of had the similar mindset, and we actually played together on a team briefly in Season 3, so we kind of knew one another already. But when we had discussions, it was basically just Mithy screaming at Sven, Peke just looking at it, and walking away. Like, after 2 minutes of listening, it was like, nah, I'm not gonna get it. Not gonna get into it, and I don't want to listen to it anymore. So, sOAZ in a way did, like, he was a bit more argumentative in a way, but both of them kind of knew that, you know, like, you have to save your strength, and they did save their strength. It was not necessarily that they were slacking in practice, but they were able to pick up information while playing at a 80% level, if that makes sense. So some players had to continuously be. Now, I may have been one of those players that need to consistently work really, really hard until later in my career when I could pick it up a bit more. But I had to work really hard to be good. They didn't. They just subconsciously picked up every kind of information, even if they were losing lanes. Like, they were losing every, like, a couple of lanes. For example, Peke in the later part of the summer split, he was losing a lot of lanes. But he was able to subconsciously pick up all the champions that he was playing against, and then was able to perform with them at Worlds, which was obviously more important than playing them in the regular season / regional qualifiers when we knew we were going to win, right?
And that thing you said also about the champions, that's not some, like, nostalgic, like, romantic. That was real. He really could, like, there was even examples where he'd be like, nah, this champion isn't even good, so he wouldn't practice it. But then it would just become so OP in the meta, he would be like, yeah, let's play it. But as you say, he could just play it and win, like, the first game he played on it, or play it in a series for the first time and just be winning. And so I always thought that must be such an insane fucking mentality he must have to play. Because the other thing as well, I'll throw the last thing in here, is because he was someone who complained, like, famously, if people don't know, he basically was the one who invented that dog champions thing, but it wasn't for jungle, it was for top lane, because it was like the fucking Cho'Gath and all that shit that no one wanted to play. But what people forget is this detail amazing. He didn't say dog champions and then Forgiven style refused to play the champion. He said dog champion and then was the best at those champions. Yep. Like, he actually had, I always thought people, because he seemed arrogant and he seemed like he was competent, people thought he was a bad teammate. As far as I can tell from talking to him, this guy's an amazing teammate. Like, who the fuck wouldn't want that as your top laner? Like, think of all the upsides we're talking about. Like, he's a very misunderstood guy, in my opinion. What do you think of sOAZ in this sense?
I mean, he's one of the few that I still keep in touch with once in a while, because I do believe that he's inherently a very caring person. He's misunderstood in the way that people think that him complaining means that he hates something, he's not going to do it, and whatever it is, he's going to be like, nah, this is terrible, I don't want to do that, like, you know. But it's more like he complains because he just likes to complain, but then he does it anyway and does his work, right? And in terms of players that I've played with, like, I mean, he's the guy I obviously played with the longest. I played with him in Origin, Season 5, Season 6, and a bit on Fnatic until I got the boot. But the man has a distinct public persona that obviously aggravates people and makes them think of him as lesser. But until season 8, basically, when he was replaced by Bwipo, like he was likely the best top laner all around for the entirety of for in EU, right?
You know, I'm always rep my set, and the people who've got my back are the following people who support my videos: Matt Pugnatio, Rajcula, Jasun, Jensen Goh, Tosh, Toucan, and you know, the all-time ride or die, Jerky's minion, isn't it? Special thanks to him. Do you want to suggest a topic or a guest for my content? Want to find out who the upcoming interview subjects are? Do you want to take part in one of those long discussions with me where you set the topics? Maybe you want to ask me a question for my video AMA? Well, all of those perks and more are available where? At the Patreon link in the description box below. So put your money where your mouth is and join the Scroominati today. You dig?